MMA Road Show, episode number 147. My name is John Morgan, and I am in Los Angeles. My man Cole Coffee, he is not with me, but he is going to be with us here very shortly. My man Cole Coffee is out in Boston for the big UFC pay-per-view, UFC 220, Miocic versus Ngannou. The heavyweight title is on the line. Daniel Cormier versus Volkan Ozdemir, the co-main event. The light heavyweight title is on the line. A couple of big fights out there. Meanwhile, I'm in Los Angeles. Inglewood is where the event will be. Bellator 192, Rampage versus Sonnen. Big event for Bellator as well. Their first event on the new Paramount Network, which, don't worry, you don't have to find anything. It's staying right where Spike was, so they actually said today that you don't even have to change your DVR. It should all work there. So a newly rebranded network, but it's going to stay in all the same homes, so you don't have to find any place for it. But a big event for Bellator as well. Damn shame these cards have to go head-to-head with each other. You know, the Bellator weekly product, good fights. Good fights. They've had a lot of, good talent come along, but it's, the tentpole events are the one you kind of want to tune in for. And to be going up against a heavyweight title fight, it does kind of suck. I think if things work out the way they should, you should be able to watch the main and the co-main for Bellator, which, of course, are the big fights there. And then you can flip over for the pay-per-view. But, hey, DVRs and all that good stuff, you'll figure it out. You'll be watching both. I know it. We'll start out talking about Bellator. We're going to get to some insight on the UFC and what things are like up there in icy cold Boston from Cole Coffee. He's got a crew with him, man. He and Matt Erickson are up there covering the show for MMA Junkie. And then, of course, as it was at the last pay-per-view, pretty cool, man. A couple of MMA Junkie alumni are working as well. You got Shamakar Sandhu working for MMA India. You got Abhi Subhan. He's over there working for the Mac Life. So they're all actually up there in Boston having a good time, leaving me here all by my damn lonesome self. I am going to have a frosty beverage with Simon Simano later on tonight. He's working the desk right now, but he lives right down the road. And we'll have a couple cocktails this evening. But let's talk about what's happening in Los Angeles first. I'll be honest, when I came out here, I kind of thought that media coverage might be pretty light. It's no question about it. The Bellator is still the number one brand. The UFC is still the number one brand. So when Bellator goes head to head, they're going to suffer a little bit. So I was a little bit worried about media coverage for Bellator, but quite a bit more media out here than I thought there would be. Some of the national media that lives in LA didn't travel. Of course, there's some local media in LA that's covering as well. So they're actually doing pretty good with coverage. I thought they might struggle a little bit, but they're doing pretty good. And we had an open workout yesterday that drew pretty good interest. And then we had a press conference today. Did have to drive a little bit. We're staying at the Sheraton Gateway LAX, which is literally right next to LAX, which is super convenient if you're flying down here. And they're doing most of their media here. They're doing their weigh-ins here all on site. So it's super, super convenient. Except for today. Today we had to go up to Hollywood for the press conference. It's, close to an hour drive each way, which is kind of a pain in the ass. Southern California traffic, LA traffic, brutal. Always brutal. But it was pretty cool. It was on the lot of Paramount Studios, so they were utilizing their relationship with the new network, and it was on the lot where they make movies and they make TV shows happen, and so it's pretty cool. It was a beautiful setting, a very historical setting. Look, I'm not I'll be honest, I'm not the movie file or whatever you call it, a cinema guy. I don't know what you call it, but it's just not me. So I don't know. I know Matt Erickson is a big collector of movie memorabilia and all that, so he may even enjoyed it a little bit more than I did. I don't know what's been filmed there and all that, but I will say it was a beautiful setting, and it was pretty cool. They had some trailers running for some cool stuff as well. I'm not a huge TV show watcher. If it doesn't have an MMA fight, I don't watch much, but as we were waiting to get ready, they had some previews running for some original programming. One was called Waco, about the Koresh situation in Texas. Of course, that's kind of close to my heart because it was, not too far away from where I grew up in Dallas. There was another one called Yellowstone. So that's a pretty cool little program on there. But it was a cool scene. So I'll just say that. And again, pretty good media coverage. So I was really impressed with the coverage they've been able to get so far. Now, one of the big stories this week has been, and it had been talked about for a while since they made the decision, but how the card is designed. Okay, originally when this card was announced, it was welterweight champ Douglas Lima against challenger Rory McDonald in the main event of the fight. Okay, Bellator 192, Lima versus McDonald. And of course, you had the heavyweight Grand Prix opening round contest between Quinton Rampage Jackson and Chael Sonnen as your co-main event. Now, a little more than a week ago, Bellator made the decision, along with their friends at Paramount, to move the card around a little bit and put Quinton Rampage Jackson and Chael Sonnen in the main event. Now, I got to be honest with you. I would 100% do the exact same thing. 100%. And I get it. I saw a lot of people saying, wow, that's disrespecting your champion, man. That's not giving love to a fight that some people say could determine the number one welterweight on the planet. I don't know if I buy into that. It's so hard to make that argument. I get MMA math. Rory McDonald beat Tyron Woodley, and so if Rory beats the Bellator champ and he owns a win over the UFC champ, then he's number one in the world. That's a good argument to make. If you're Douglas Lima, you say, I beat Rory McDonald, who beat Tyron Woodley, so I was already the champ anyway, so I'm the best in the world. I get the argument. It's debatable. It's not something that you're going to be able to convince people one way or the other. They're either going to believe it or they're not. And as simple as that. I don't think you're it's not one of those MMA arguments where you're able to, lace a couple of facts out there and then everything's going to be right. So, but it's an argument. It's definitely a top-level welterweight contest. It's one of the best fights that Bellator can make in terms of world rankings and in terms of impact on the rankings. So, big fight. And by demoting them, quote-unquote, to the co-main event slot, a lot of people are saying, listen, you disrespect them, and that's not fair. And it's for this. Now, here's the thing. If you don't buy into the heavyweight Grand Prix concept, then I guess you'd probably feel more that way. I like the Grand Prix concept. I really do. And I know it's crazy because I know Chael Sonnen's a middleweight, and I know Rampage is a light heavyweight, and I know, and now they're fighting at heavyweight. I get all that, and I get why you might not like that. But Rampage and Chael can sell a fight, even without beef between each other. And they've been very, very respectful of each other. Even without contrived, scripted selling points of hate, they're still going to sell a fight. They're superstars of sport. They've been there. They've done that. Their name carries a ton of weight, and they're charismatic. The interviews, they're going to talk. Douglas Lima, incredible fighter. I actually picked him. In this fight. I know that's not probably a popular decision, but I picked him. He is incredibly talented and he hits hard. But he doesn't talk a lot. And English is a second language and he's fine at it, but he's just not a talker. That's not who he is. Rory McDonald doesn't talk a lot either. Now, some of the things he says are incredible. They're Canadian Psycho-esque, but he doesn't talk much either. They're not going to get the grabby headlines. They're not going to get, I can tell you, just based on clicks, based on views, guess who's clicking? Rampage and Chael. Guess who's clicking? Rampage and Chael. Do Lima and McDonald mean a lot more? Hell yeah, they do. No disrespect to Rampage and Chael. They're not fighting for anything other than the next round of the tournament. That's it. They're not going to impact any rankings anywhere. But that 100% would have done what Bellator did. Here's the problem. They didn't do it that way from the beginning. If they'd have just announced the card this way from the beginning, I think they would have been fine. And I think they realized that mistake, to be honest with you. And I'll tell you why. Because today at the press conference, they before we even got to ask any questions, they were addressing it. And they were saying, listen, here's what's going to happen. Rampage, well, first of all, they called it a double main event. Okay, that's promoter talk, whatever. The final fight's the main event, right? But double main event. But then they did something kind of cool, and I think this is smart, and I think it makes sense. They said, listen, every tentpole event this year is going to close with a tournament fight. So whether it be the opening round fights, whether it be, the next round, the semifinals, that's what we're doing, okay? And I think that's smart. And then they set an next step, and I don't know what exactly they intend to do, and I'm interested to see how they do it. Bellator's tentpole events are pretty cool production-wise. I'll say that. I'm not into the big, WWE entrance styles or whatever, but as a little alternative every now and then to the simple, UFC ones, I like them, man. The big video board and all this. It's cool. But what they said is they're going to go out of their way to make sure that these fights feel differently, that they're presented a little bit different, and then this is almost an event within an event. you know? And I think that's smart. And now you say, no, listen, Lima McDonald, that's our main event. You know, that is our main event. But then we've got this special feature of our tournament, our Grand Prix, that's going to be happening all year long. You know, as I said, it's a storyline you can follow all year long. I think that's a good idea. I am totally on board with it, and I don't think that disrespects anybody. Because, I mean, what do you say? Okay, well, you know, this event, yes, Lima McDonald or the main event, but the next event, you know, when it's one of the Pitbull brothers and, you know, I mean, whoever it is, okay, now that's not the main event. Now the main event is the tournament. Now you're talking about respect and disrespect. This is going to be treated the same way throughout the year. And I think because of that, you're not going to have conflicts. I think everybody's going to understand, and I think it's going to make sense. Smart move on Bellator. They just handled it wrong coming out the gate. They made a mistake coming out the gate, but that's the plan going forward. Now, I go through all this because we had a pretty funny moment today at the at the press conference. You know, it was not the most tense press conference, but again, Chael and Rampage, they don't have any tension. They don't. They said, listen, we got no beef between each other, so they're not bickering back and forth. They're just doing their thing. And you know, good for them. I will say, if you haven't watched the countdown pieces, catch the countdown pieces that Bellator did. They're so good. They are so good. The second one, the line that Chael had, first of all, the poem that he had is great. He has a little poem that he throws in there that's fantastic. And he has an awesome one-liner, too, where he's sitting there eating a steak, and he's like, people are asking me how my training's going. And I say, training? It's just Rampage. Dude, it's nice. So it's nice. There was their fine promo work. Watch those if you didn't. They were actually a lot of fun. But so the press conference is okay. It's nothing spectacular or whatever. But, of course, I asked about the placement and how they decided and what they're doing. Okay, Mark Raimondi was there for MMA Fighting. He touched on it a little bit as well. And then all of a sudden, towards the end, Yves Edwards got the microphone. Yves Edwards, long-time MMA veteran, a guy that most people in the industry have an incredible amount of respect for. I mean, the guy fought, 65, 70 times in his career. Incredible. That's one of my favorite early MMA stories. I was actually at his second ever pro fight, which is amazing. They were in Dallas. Just a legend. The guy's been around forever, all the respect in the world. So I to be honest, I didn't know why he had a microphone. I thought maybe, is he here cornering? I don't know why he would be cornering Douglas Lima, but you got ATT Atlanta, like maybe something happened and they decided to work together for this camp or something. I didn't know. It didn't make sense to me, but that was the only thing I could come up with in my head. And basically, Yves decides to get up and hammer home the point. And here's what he had to say.
Bellator is a cornerstone of our network and a franchise that Viacom is proud to have in its portfolio. And what better place to hold the first Bellator on Paramount press conference than here at the legendary Paramount lot. It's on this lot that the term movie star was coined over 100 years ago, and we've got some pretty big stars of our own sitting here at the dais. These fighters here will fight on the Paramount Network Saturday night, January 20th at 9 p.m., taking place at the LA Forum. And what makes this event also special is that there will be two main events, Rory McDonald versus the champ Douglas Lima, followed by the premiere of Bellator's Heavyweight Grand Prix, Chael versus Rampage. The new Heavyweight Grand Prix that will crown a heavyweight champion is a huge initiative for the Paramount Network, Bellator, and Viacom. We view this as a year-long series, a special series, a storyline that fans can follow from event to event. As you'll see on Saturday's broadcast and in the arena, we will creatively differentiate the main event card and the Grand Prix in many different ways. We want this creative differentiation to make the Heavyweight Grand Prix feel like a separate and unique event to the audience, and that's why it ends the night. And moving forward, all of the Bellator tentpoles in 2018 will end with a Bellator Grand Prix event.
Could please for Scott, I wanted to ask, a lot's been made of the construction of this card. What's the main event? What's the co-main event? Now I think the terminology is it's a double main event. So I guess can you talk about kind of how you came to the conclusion that that's the way the card should be laid out? And it sounds like from the statement made, every card the rest of the year, this Heavyweight Grand Prix will be the final fight of the night, but we don't want to call it necessarily the main event of the night. Is that right?
I mean, look, both these fights deserve to be the main event. So this is a double main event, and John had already spoken to it earlier, and I think that if you'd like to, to get it explained a little bit in more detail, we can sit down and talk after the press conference.
Sure. And do you have any teasers? It sounds like you said you're going to differentiate a little bit how it's going to look, how it's going to feel. Do either one of you have any teasers of what we can expect to see?
Well, I think it's going to make a lot more sense to you on Saturday when if you're watching the broadcast, you're in the arena, and we hope that you are all in the arena because it's going to be an incredible night. It's going to be a packed house. But it'll make sense to you because what we're doing is we're really creating it's like a show in a show within a show. It's an event within the event. And we're really creatively differentiating these two things in a big, big way. You'll see it on Saturday. I won't give you all the surprises, but I know that it'll be a great time and it'll be a very entertaining night.
And then just for John, what was the time frame about the decision to flip-flop the main event and make the heavyweight tournament the main event for across the year? When did that all kind of go down and get decided?
It's very soon. We started thinking about, obviously the Grand Prix has been in the works for a long time, but creatively how we lay out the show, which is what this is about, was just, I think it was a week ago. So this is yes, it was quick. It was recent, very recent. So things happen fast, for sure.
What's the justification for having sorry, some of you guys don't know who's talking. What's the justification for having a middleweight fight a light heavyweight in a heavyweight tournament be the main event above probably the best welterweight title fight in the sport?
Yeah, I think we've already addressed that. If you'd like
Yeah.
to talk about that after, we're more than happy to sit down. But I think we've already addressed that. And listen, we're moving on. And the announcement was made. We made the decision to move forward, and the network did. So, to me, if you have another question other than that, we'll gladly talk about the fighters. You have all these great athletes up here. They've already discussed how they feel about it, and we all talked about this in length. So, to me, it's either the next question or we'll talk about something else.
Whose decision was it?
We can talk about something else later. Thank you. I mean, we've already talked about this. It's. You did. Tell him, Rampage. I don't know.
Question up front?
If you wouldn't mind. It was mine.
Turn the mic on.
It was mine. When I called up Coker and John and I engineered this entire thing, okay, I did tell them if Dougals and Roro want to stick around in the back, I'll happily fight them in the locker room if it makes them feel more appreciated. But as things stand, they're going to clear my office so I can go to work. Thank you.
How fantastic was that? Man, the tension in the room. The tension. We've got the video up on, it's on YouTube. We got the video on the site as well. But you got to see, Coker is not a guy that gets frustrated, right? He's just always so calm and cool, collected. And you could see he was visibly annoyed having to deal with Yves Edwards. Now, as it turns out, Yves wasn't there as a teammate or an extended teammate of Douglas Lima. He's actually got his own MMA show on Pluto TV with some other people. I'm not going to tell you I know exactly what Pluto TV is. No offense to Pluto TV. I'm sure they have no idea what the MMA Road Show is. But, it's some kind of, I guess, over-the-top delivery channel or whatever. But anyway, Yves has a show on that channel, and that's who he was here working for. And you could sense the tension. I think Coker was basically like looking around, wondering why PY wasn't jerking the microphone out of Yves' hands. And then Chael comes in and throws in the Dougals and Roro comment. I thought that was absolutely fantastic. So yeah, kind of a crazy moment at the press conference. That's one that'll definitely be in the memory banks moving forward. But again, at the end of the day, I think Bellator made the right decision. I think they're going to continue to make the right decision moving forward. I think it does make sense. I love this Grand Prix. I said it before, I'll say it again. It's batshit crazy, and I'm cool with that. You know what I mean? Like, what other fight do you want Rampage to fight? What other fight do you want Chael to fight? What other fight do you want Fedor to fight? What other fight is it? You're like, oh, come on, man. We're wasting our time with this garbage when we really should have seen what? You know what I mean? And that's why, to me, this is fun. It harkens back to the open weight Grand Prix eras. And I'm telling you, I don't know. I wish the UFC would embrace it. I know why they don't. I know Dana hates him because of the uncertainty and the injuries and all those things that happen. But I think it would be fun. I mean, you think about Cormier winning the Strikeforce Grand Prix. I mean, I don't know. They're just fun, especially when they're not. I do not like single night tournaments. Do not like single night tournaments. I think that then you really start getting luck involved and all that. But I love this. So anyway, I think that's how it's set up. Listen, in the fight pick itself, I went with Rampage, and I went with him before we got out here, and I was a little bit worried. Of course, Rampage fighting at heavyweight, instantly you think, God, now he doesn't have to care. I will say, I mean, he still looks big, obviously. I think he's, we'll see. By the time you listen to this, the weigh-ins will probably already be done. Sitting down to record on Thursday night like we always do. Early morning weigh-ins here, Friday morning. But I'm guessing he's going to come in around like 245, 250. But he was 253 last time, and it just didn't look as lean. It looked like he's got more muscle on. He said he's been following a strict diet. He talks about this thyroid issue that he had, an underperforming thyroid, and he looks to me to be in better shape. Now, his open workout, we put some clips of that on there. He was just kind of running through the motions. Walking through the motions might be the better way to say it, but it still seemed to me like he looked in decent shape. Chael, I was surprised too. Chael said, and again, we'll check the weigh-ins, but he said he was going to come in around 215. He said he kind of lightened up a little bit. He walks around 225, but he actually wanted to lighten up a little bit so that he was the speedier guy, that he felt like he could move better at the lighter weight. He's still going to have some strength. He's going to be giving up a lot of weight to get the takedowns. Chael's made it pretty clear. He's like, listen, it's funny because he's basically saying, this is going to be the most boring fight ever if I win. But he was basically saying, listen, I am going to take him down once per round, and I'm not letting him back up. So, if he can do that, he can win. Or, as Rampage said, he wants to stand up and just try to throw down until he knocks Chael out. So I went with Rampage. Question marks for sure, man. Such a wild matchup. Two guys from different divisions facing each other in a third division. It's crazy. But I'm leaning towards Rampage, so that's kind of my thought process on it. Douglas Lima versus Roy McDonald, the co-main event. Again, I did lean Douglas Lima there as well. I think he's an incredibly underrated fighter, really, really good fighter. I do feel like this might be an opportunity to kind of be his coming out party. But man, Rory's tough. If he's vintage, don't take this, and I don't mean this to be disrespectful of Paul Daly, but the win over Paul Daly just didn't do it for me. That didn't answer the questions that I have. I mean, I know he hits hard, and but he's just so one-dimensional. And no disrespect, that's why we like Paul Daly, right? He comes in looking to blow things up, right? Simtex, man, I love it, but he just doesn't have the ground game. So that's why I'm leaning that way. I still have those questions, those lingering questions. I mean, why did the UFC want to let Rory go? Why do they want to let Rory go? Because they believe that his better days were behind him, period. End of story. I can tell you right now, if the UFC wanted to keep Rory McDonald, they would have kept him. They can pay whatever they want to pay. It's because they made a talent evaluation that they were not willing to invest big money on Rory because they felt his better days were behind him. And if you look at it over time, the UFC has done a pretty good job of evaluating talent. Guys that they let go hardly ever go on massive runs, or you go, wow, they really screwed that one up. And I know internally, there were some high-ranking officials that believe, the Lawler fight especially kind of stole Rory's soul. He's still a badass. There's no question about it. But I went towards Lima. Now, if Rory McDonald answers those questions, then you'll never hear me say anything about that UFC talent evaluation again. You might say that this guy might be the one that goes on the other way. So, but we'll see. For now, I'm going Lima. Michael Chandler, Goichi Yamauchi is a big fight there. Michael Chandler saying, listen, I'm not even sure I want to fight for the title after this, which Scott Coker seemed a little annoyed at that. But not even sure I want to fight for the title. If I win this fight, I just want big fights. I want the biggest fights I can possibly get. So we'll see. But Goichi Yamauchi, a guy that might have flown under your radar, certainly understandable. If you're not a weekly follower of the Bellator brand, Guy's dangerous, especially with his submissions. So he could cause some problems here for Michael Chandler. Although Michael Chandler looks to be in great physical condition this week. So those are the featured bouts at Bellator. Of course, they'll have a big undercard as well, and we'll have coverage of all that. But we've really just been kind of getting to the featured guys this week, especially because with 2 events going on, there's so much coverage on the website. There was just a ton of stuff. I did write a story on Chad George, prelim fighter, who has taken nearly 3 years off from MMA. He's been working on he's an LA area guy, and that's up on MMA Junkie if you want to check it out. So I was kind of I did write on the undercard. But Chad George has taken almost 3 years off of the sport of MMA, but he has been active. He worked in getting his Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. He's been taking grappling competitions, including Eddie Bravo, the Eddie Bravo Invitational, and the new set of rules where you can strike on the ground, the combat jiu-jitsu, where he actually won a tournament, claimed a title there. So he says, the time away has been good for him, and he feels like an entirely recharged and new man. Now, you know what that ring rust is like, that cage corrosion. So we'll see. All right, listen, what I want to do is I am here covering Bellator 192, but I know you're all up into UFC 220 as well. That's what you want to hear. And I know that my man Cole Coffee has got he's sitting at an Airbnb out there, and he's got a crew. He's got a crew of people in there. I think Matt Erickson's with him. Fiasco Jones is up in there as well. Shamat Karsandu is there. I think Abby Subhan's in the back working, so he might not be able to chime in much, but he's there. So he's got a couple of interviews and a couple of things going on there. The open workouts that they went to at the Reebok headquarters, they got to see that. They got to see a little bit of some early interviews that they did. So they got a bunch going on, and so I figure what we'll do is just throw it out to Boston, Cole Coffee, and let him bring you a crew.
All right, here we are in Boston, the lovely warm Boston, where right now, I just looked a second ago and it was like 24 degrees, which I think in Celsius is like minus 40 Celsius. Is that true? Sandu?
Is that what they use in Canada? Celsius?
I don't know.
I don't know. Is that what they use
Isn't that
in England?
that's what they use in England, right?
Well, I'm not English anymore. I'm not British. I've moved, haven't I?
Oh, just like that. Just
it.
turncoat.
That's all that institutional
Just a
knowledge.
turncoat.
Just take off one shirt, put on another. That's how it goes.
I like it. it. Is that part of lad culture that we just heard about a second
Well,
ago?
That's pretty lad culture.
I think we need a whole podcast dedicated to lad culture.
We should. And before we get into all that, let me set the scene. Here we are at the Archstone Avenue in the TD Garden area of Boston. Lovely restaurants off to the side. It's cold as shit, but here at the table with me, it is warm and hot with fine folks. To my left, Chamatkar Sandhu, the new resident of Toronto, no longer English. In fact, your accent is practically gone already. You sound very American or Canadian.
That's about right, eh?
That was good. Opposite of me is the one Fiasco Jones.
Shabu!
That was good. See, I put on the mid and only peaked like twice in that.
Well, I held back.
You did hold back.
Because we're reaching the quiet.
That's a lot of restraint that took.
Yeah.
I can tell. And then to my right, the award-winning everything Matt Erickson here
That's
at the
actually
table.
true. The award-winning part is true.
I know. I see it on your byline, your signature.
Yeah.
That made me want to write a signature, and I was like, did I ever win an award?
Award-winning journalist, yeah.
I almost put that. I was like, accepted to young authors once in 4th grade, but then I was like, I don't know if that's still current.
You could do almost made it into Who's Who Among American High School Students.
That would be good. I did
1992.
get one of those letters that said, hey, there's a book, like Who's Who in Hathaways, and like I'm in there.
I was in the Who's Who Among American High School Students. To do that, you had to pay like $50, and then you got your name in the book if they accepted you. But they accepted everybody. They just wanted your $50.
They just wanted your $50 for the book.
And at that point, you're like, holy shit, well, how else can I have my name in a book? I got to just pay to get my name in this book. I'm doing it.
I like it. And I should say in the room that's going to join us later on is the fine Abby Subhan, who's over doing some work for a publication that we will not announce over the airways, but just know that is not junkie, even though I think he is doing a junkie project right now. Okay, so we can say he's here in the room. He's working on some junkie stuff. And then we have Danny Austin over in the corner. What up? He threw gang signs So
Canadian gang signs.
Canadian gang signs.
Which is basically
The peace sign.
Which is the
Peace sign. The Canadian gang signs are the peace sign and the thumbs up sign.
And also the international sign for surrender.
But hey, isn't the peace sign if you do it the wrong way in England?
That's
it,
lad
in England.
culture, Matt. In England,
it means
we're talking
up
about
your ass, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I learned that from watching Darkest Hour.
That's
recently,
what's
so, yeah.
up. But in Canada, you give them the thumbs up, the A-OK. It's all good, mate. You're allowed in the country.
I like it. It's like a whole new you over here right now.
That's right.
You're just so
But
forgiving
in
and
England,
open.
Kenny? Am I doing that right?
No, with the two fingers in that particular direction. Now I was told that was it the English that were going towards the French, the archers, right?
Basically,
because they used to.
the two fingers pointed outwards and you're just throwing up at somebody basically means F off, mate. Or
Right.
Up your arse.
up your ass.
Right, but I thought the story was that back when the English and the French used to fight, they used to capture the archers and they would cut their fingers off. And then so that was their way of saying, fuck you, I still got my fingers. And it became the up yours sort
That
of thing.
was Morgan Freeman and Kevin Costner in Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves.
Yeah, could be.
I think that's where you're.
Wonderful movie.
That's-
wonderful
You call that
movie.
history.
That is history.
That was.
Don't you remember the Brian Adams song?
Oh yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Everything I do for you.
Yeah, I remember that. That's
Classic.
classic
Fantastic.
English folk song.
I love English folk song. All right,
And
well,
one of Christian Slater's finest performances in that movie, by the
that
way.
is true. That is true. All right, well let's bring it back to why we're here in Boston. We're here for UFC 220 to watch the wonderful main event. Actually, two wonderful events. We have Francis Ngannou taking on Stipe Miocic, and we also have Daniel Cormier fighting Volkan Ozdemir. So we had some wonderful things that have already sort of taken place here in Boston. Yesterday we had some interviews that we set up here in town. We were supposed to have 4 interviews, but our 4th interview, Jamie Moyle, dropped off because the injury forced her out of the event. So we were still able to sit down with Dustin Ortiz. We sat down with John Vellante. And then finally,
Abdul Razak Al Hassan.
Al Hassan. And all those interviews are on MMA Junkie, so if you haven't seen those, make sure you go check out some of those. And then luckily, all of us were able to go afterwards. We went to the Reebok headquarters for the open workouts. So I guess by just tossing the ball back to you guys, your thoughts on, before we get to the open workouts, first thoughts on Boston. We're going to talk a little bit in a second about what we saw today at the media day, but is this your first time in Boston?
It's my first time, and I have to say I'm having a great time. It does help that I only had to be in the air for 2 hours, flying from good old Toronto, and not having to fly in from London and
It's true.
suffer from what Abby suffered from, which is like tons of jet lag and all that kind of good stuff. But literally the minute I landed, good pal Danny Austin was already in town. So I'm not gonna lie, we went bar hopping. We went to about 6-7 bars and or 6-7
That sounds
bars.
like proper MMA media
Yeah.
tactics.
Went to 6-7 bars and had a lot of beer. And actually, I've really taken a liking to some local brew. Samuel Adams Cold Snap, or Sam Adams, as a local would say.
Whoa.
So that's what we're drinking now, actually.
Well, that's what you're drinking.
Oh, that's what I'm drinking.
And Fiasco drink.
And Fiasco.
Jones, of
I'm
course.
having a fine Pabst Blue Ribbon. I'm not like John. John doesn't have any Ballast Point either, so it's not a Ballast Point home game. We try to pick up the Ballast Point when we can. We actually do have a little Ballast Point in the
we
fridge.
do have some Ballast Point.
We tried the habanero sculpin
Yeah.
last night, and perhaps one of these fine folks can try it. The sculpin's good. I mean, it's tasty, but this is the habanero version, and it legit has like this little burn
It
from the
is
habanero.
spicy.
It catches up to you, and just when you're taking a drink, you're like, okay, tastes like the sculpin. You're like, oh wait, what's that? What's that? And it just kind of creeps on the back of your tongue, but it's interesting. It's kind of like one of those beers that you want to eat. I want to eat barbecue with it because I need
Right.
something else in my throat with it. That's what she said.
Me too.
But it's good stuff. But here we are. We are here having some frosty beverages. So I'm glad that you were able to get into Boston. And Danny Austin did the right thing and showed you how you should welcome someone to Boston, I imagine.
Well, yeah, and speaking about bringing the heat, the folks inside the Reebok headquarters were some really passionate fans, and I suppose just being there filming ringside, because that's what the setup was. They had a ring inside Reebok HQ for the fighters to do their thing, do the open workout before they had a separate scrum area. But I thought the crowd were fantastic. They were really participating well, and the guys like DC and Ngannou and Miocic, I thought got real warm welcomes, and so they all got loud pops from the crowd. It was great, and I had a really fun time actually covering that event. I thought it was really good, and of course then today we had media day, got a chance to kind of basically interview all the main card fighters and see them square off for the first time during fight week. And look, I'm sure we're going to get into it in terms of all the fights in this card, but speaking to other media members and even speaking for myself, there's only 1 or 2 or 1.5 reasons I'm here in town, and that's to cover the most anticipated heavyweight title fight in years. I'm so damn excited for Stipe Miocic versus Francis Ngannou, and literally, I just wish it was Saturday right now.
Yeah, I bet. Well, Albert, you're here. You're a little bit different. You're here as a UFC staffer, so you get to see behind the...
Pepsi. I work for Pepsi.
That's right, Pepsi. I'm sorry. Yeah. Pepsi. It's so weird that Pepsi gives you the access to follow these fighters like they do. And you were up on the turnbuckle taping some of the action that took place there at the lovely Reebok headquarters. And you're right, it was a pretty fantastic place. The retail set up downstairs, and there was more security there than I think I've ever seen at any UFC event, whether it be an event in a
30. There was 30 security guys.
There was a 30 in probably not the biggest space, but it was pretty crazy. I felt like there was more people there than what you see at like an actual event.
It's actually true. I actually talked to Steve Reed after the fact about the security issue of the situation. Like, why? It seems like every door has a guy on it, and every
10
floor.
feet there was a security person.
And I said, like, he's like, yeah, this is actually more people than we'd have in an arena. You only need 8 guys.
So it was
8 guys in an arena. He had 30 for this thing because the way that building is set up, you have to put a guard for every point of access that is kind of open to the public. So, and that, just every back room is crazy.
That's nuts. Well, how's the event been for you? You guys what day did you get here?
Got here Tuesday.
Yeah. And so then you initially started doing some fighter interviews. You got to see Francis early on. So how was the week from when you saw them first show up for the check-ins and all that stuff until when we saw him at the open workouts? Going from when he first came, has he been loose the whole week? Because it seemed like when he especially got into the ring, was very loose, was working the crowd. I think he was throwing a little extra pop on those punches because, every time he did, and speaking to, like what you said, Sandra, the crowd was so responsive. The crowd kind of oohed and after those first punches and stuff. But you saw him at the beginning of the week. So, tell me or clue us into your thought process when you saw these guys first arrive here for this fight week. How relaxed were they? What did you see?
One, I've always thought it's interesting how Ngannou can, his temperament before, like he's ready to perform. Because the guy is just like funny, just kind of like a jokester kind of guy. And the minute you see him, like even getting for the open workouts, I saw a huge transformation. He just begins to become that killer,
that monster.
Yeah. And that's
scary dude.
Scary. But yeah, otherwise he's just like jokes around, and he was a good guy. He gave us a great interview for the .com, and Stipe was he's loose, but I don't know if you've seen in all his interviews. He's really laconic answers, kind of quick to the point. I don't know if there's a chip on his shoulder because he's not getting the respect he deserves, but he's the one that seems kind of on the verge of being pissed, but like, no, I'm not pissed. But you kind of seem pissed. No, I'm loose. Okay, well, you don't sound that way, but I'm just saying. Yeah. Whereas Ngannou seems way more relaxed. If it's overconfidence or just he just knows what he can do, Ngannou just seems just on easy street. And Stipe just, I think he's like, hey, I've knocked people out. I think Erickson even said this during the open workout. Hey, you have your CV is perfect, but you're just not getting the respect, and I think that's kind of adding up. Because he's looking down the barrel of history, and no one's really talking about that. They're talking about you can get knocked out. You ready to get knocked out? So I don't know, but yeah, and everyone else, we did some top 10 interviews with other guys. Nothing really big there, but yeah. That's the big story.
Yeah, right?
I guess we didn't even talk about Cormier and Volkan. But yeah,
Well,
Cormier was. Yeah, he was chill too.
He's on a whole nother level than what I remember seeing him years back. His comfort level, I don't know if that came from just once he finally obtained a belt at one point. I don't know if it's because of his time in front of the camera with Fox and all these guys. It's just the way he carries himself throughout fight weeks feels so different than what I think when I first met him.
I think it's all of the above. Obviously, you can't take away the fact that all the reps he's had in front of TV. Just he's always been kind of a natural showman, and now that he has the chops and the reps, he's that ability is just just way more polished. Because when he ripped the mic from Megan and just did his whole he did a whole spiel, revving up the crowd. I was like, damn, that's really good. And he's getting smart too, because he's realizing that's where you make your money now in the sport, is that you have to get these people behind you and really excited. You can't. I mean, and Ngannou's getting away with pure physical prowess to get people to holy crap, he might kill Stipe. Cormier is gonna have to go with I'm the baddest man. He's gonna sell the crowd. So, and he's doing a great job of it.
Yeah. Well, let's hop over to our right as well. Matt, you were our resident Boston guy. In fact, you think you were staying in the exact building that you guys stayed at the last time. But give me your thoughts on being back here in Boston and some of the things that maybe have stood out from you. I guess we could still just think about, we'll keep it in terms of the open workout night, but some of the things that maybe stood out for you, either the guys working out in the cage, some of the things they said, but how does it feel to be back here in Boston covering another UFC event?
Yeah, I love this city. It's one of my favorite cities in the country. Because there's just old shit here, and I love old shit. They don't.
You are quite the antiquer. If people don't know, Erickson loves him some fucking antique roadshow stuff.
I love places that don't tear everything down and build something new.
Hey, watch your back.
I know, man. I know, and I'm talking to two guys who live in Vegas. Now, don't get me wrong. I love Vegas too, but I mean, a sad day for me is when the Sahara goes away. You know what I mean? I would go down to the Sahara and be like, "This is awesome, man!" The Beatles stayed here. This is the coolest place ever, right? Why you got to tear this down? So I love Boston because of old stuff. I love Boston because it's a great food city. It's great seafood out here. You just can't go wrong with so much stuff.
We've had some great chowder. Every place has been their chowder is better than last.
I mean, you got Harvard right across the river. I love Boston because there's been so many amazing movies that have been set here. It's just a great city, and it's a walkable city. You don't want to walk around right now because it's just ass cold and miserable. But if you come here in the summer or the spring or the fall, it's a great city to walk around in. And it's a great sports town, which is what we get to experience every time the UFC comes here.
Sure.
They love to come here, as we saw 2 years ago. That I think they kind of build these mid to late January events around the assumption that, okay, this is going to be awesome. We're going to have a pay-per-view on Saturday night because we know that on Sunday the Patriots are going to be playing to go to the Super Bowl again. You know what I mean? It's so I think that's kind of a little bit of a Dana thing.
Yeah.
So you can probably count on that for the foreseeable future, since the Patriots are always good. But it's a great sports town. The Celtics are in town tonight. The Bruins were in town last night.
Yep.
You got the UFC here Saturday night. The Patriots are playing on Sunday. You can really actually feel the buzz out there.
You're right.
When you and I were downstairs eating across the street earlier tonight,
it was packed.
All these Celtics fans are there because they're walking down the block to go to the game that's going on right now, and it's just a great buzz around here. It's really cool.
Yeah, and I feel you. And you kind of brought me back to, we saw Dana. Dana came out last night and did his sort of obligatory, "Hey guys, I'm so pumped up. How are you guys doing?" But there was also another guest that was there as well. Khabib Nurmagomedov was there as well. I don't know how much you guys paid attention to anything that he really said, but I happened to hear some of the stuff where he was sort of talking to Dana, where it felt like they were cordial, but not like the best of friends. But what I want to ask you guys is, we know that tomorrow is going to be the press conference that comes up, and it's going to be him and Tony. Is it going to be for the interim belt, or are we going to finally hear tomorrow that one lightweight champ has been stripped of the belt? What are we going to hear tomorrow? What do you guys think?
I think that's the last kind of piece of the news that's missing from this week in terms of that particular fight. It kind of slowly got broken, like from some Russian website. Then BJPenn.com confirmed it, but then
doesn't get more reputable than that.
Exactly, and then Dana himself came out and confirmed it's on, and then after that we all got an official press release earlier today, just letting us all know that, hey guys, we've got a press conference tomorrow for 222 and 223, so the Edgar Holloway main event, and then obviously Tony Ferguson and Khabib Nurmagomedov. However, the press release did specifically state that Ferguson is the interim champion. So based upon that, given the fact that it's 24 hours before the press conference, would perhaps lead me to believe that that might be the way they're going. But what I really think is going to happen is Dana White's going to come out and the very first thing he's going to say is, FYI, we have stripped Conor McGregor and this fight is for the undisputed championship. Dana White's gone on record as saying that he was going to do that anyway.
Right.
Literally just a few days ago, after the St. Louis Fox FS1 post show. So I guess that's the final piece of the puzzle for this week's fight announcement. And I'm 99% sure we're going to hear that said tomorrow night, that Conor McGregor has been stripped of the lightweight championship.
I'm only 50-50 on it. Obviously, I think we could hear that for sure. But I also feel like when Dana said if he's going to be out until September, that's almost 2 years, unacceptable. I feel like they're going to wait to give him one more chance, right? To say, okay, I'll fight in July. And if he fights in July, they're not going to strip him, right? So I feel like they'll give him just that extra little week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks even. And then if there's no response from Conor, if he's not made up his mind, at some point before UFC 223, they'll strip him. I'm a coin toss whether or not it's going to be announced tomorrow or we're going to hear it 3 weeks down the road.
I just feel if they announce the fight at the press conference to the fans and everybody watching on the stream, because that's when the wider public's really going to know about this fight. And if they don't say it's for the undisputed championship, I think there's going to be a major backlash from the fan base, especially the hardcore fan base.
I think so as well.
Right?
At least that's kind of like what I'm feeling. I mean, it already feels such a shame that we're having these lightweight belt that's been sitting over here, and now we have this interim belt. Now the fact that we're starting to get defenses of an interim belt is just
never stopped him before.
I know, but the fact that there's no injury, there's nothing involved. It's just the fact that the guy doesn't want to fight right now, and it's just that hasn't worked for anybody else. And he's just this rare gem that he's able to kind of get by it. And it's like, I get it. He's your cash cow, whatever. But for the sanctity of the sport, or of like every other guy that's grinding to get to the belt, make it be worthwhile. Don't make this fucking asterisk of like, this is an interim. We're gonna give him a little more time. I feel like they've given plenty of time. And I'm the same way. I feel like I will be sick to my stomach if they say it's an interim title. And if
why
it
have
is
a press conference though? Like, it gets to the point of like, well, why do a press conference to announce? I mean, just an interim.
Well, I think they do a press conference to announce because they've tried to put this fight together 3 times, four times, or whatever it's been, and it keeps falling apart and it keeps not happening. So now let's get everybody re-excited again for the 4th time that it's finally going to happen, and it's a good opportunity to do it because you got a lot of eyeballs on these on this event this weekend and everything else, but. Yeah, it's a sham that all these interim belts exist, and the hardcore fans are going to be furious, but they've been furious 1,000 times before.
Sure.
And
what is a
the
backlash?
UFC has never
when you say a fan backlash, what does that actually really mean?
It's never mattered enough for them to do anything else.
Lots of angry tweets.
Right.
But
it hasn't changed.
He got a huge pop from the Boston crowd yesterday.
Which was weird, though, right? You know what I mean?
I don't know.
These are supposed to be Conor people.
That's what he thought as well, and he was like, "No, these people like me." You know? And I was like,
Conor may have people turning on because of the.
I think they just like champions. I think this town likes fighters. They like people that get in there, compete, especially with such a pedigree of sports that come here. I think they respect guys that are willing to get in there and grind.
You want to know what I think? I think MMA fans are full of shit. I think MMA fans will cheer for whoever's in front of them most of the time. You know what I'm saying?
In some places they don't, because we've been in places where Daniel has been outright just booed and yelled.
Well, that's what I said to him yesterday.
But
remember?
Yesterday they were loving him.
DC, how do you figure people out? Because half the time you go someplace and you got people booing you like crazy, and then you come here and they're cheering you like crazy. So
Right.
how do you figure out what the response is going to be and when it's going to be? Because he hasn't changed how he is ever.
Yeah.
He's just, that's who he is. And half the time they hate him and half the time they love him. So how can you figure these
Yeah.
people out?
So tomorrow comes, and Dana gets up there and he says, "All right, folks, this is going to be an interim title belt." Are you going to be upset, Sandu?
I will be upset because I think it would be disgraceful if that's the route that they took. Like everybody else, honestly, I think everyone's just fed up with these interim titles just for the sake of putting fights together on pay-per-views and things of that nature. And it's going to be so sad that if it's for the interim title, you're already going to have a guy in Max Holloway sitting there where some people still dispute the lineage of that particular championship because Conor never defended it.
Right.
And for that to potentially happen and now again to guys like Ferguson and Khabib, it'll just be disgusting. And I will this will probably be the most upset I'd be in quite some time if that's what happens. However, saying that, I go back to what I said before, and I'll back it up with a bit more. This is Dana White's hometown, right? Boston. This is where he grew up, right? I think that place is going to be packed tomorrow anyway, because I think this is a big fight, and the fans are going to come out in force. When Dana White says that this is going to be for the Undisputed Championship, that place, the roof will come off, I think. Because I think everyone's going to be so excited about the prospect of there being a legitimate champion now. And they're not kind of bending to the knees of Conor and the golden carrot that will he or won't he fight anytime soon, and I think the UFC just and perhaps even this event needs that sort of injection because honestly we still don't know what the ceiling is on a Khabib and a Tony Ferguson draw as pay-per-view headliners.
Sure.
So I think you say that's for the Undisputed Championship, but we're going to move forward. That's going to be a positive step in the right direction.
It's the best play, honestly. Like, especially if you're gonna try to like make a big deal and have a press conference and say, rather than just say like, oh yeah, we're gonna do this again. It's what you expect. It's still for the that's just too low. You can almost just announce it like any other thing, or have it as a part of this is your next push for the next whatever. But to actually go the extra mile and say we're gonna have a press conference and all these things, these portents are coming out. It just would be, I don't know, bad to like get people's hopes up and then just not deliver.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad as an employee of Pepsi that you have that
Pepsi
thought,
is a very
I'm glad they
strong
allow you to
supporter
share
of
that thought and
MMA.
they don't whip you for saying anything that possibly could go against the company.
By the way, fans listen to this, yeah?
My mom does.
So
Morgan's
fans-
mom does. There might be a couple
I didn't
others.
really mean the full of shit thing. I'm sorry. But what I meant by that was all those fans that cheered and went crazy for Khabib yesterday. Do you think they would have cheered the same for Conor if Conor would have showed up yesterday? I bet you they fucking would have.
Oh, for sure.
So that's why I say MMA fans are full of shit. That's what I meant. They cheer for who's right in front of them right now because, oh my God, this is awesome. Because they don't see these people all the time like we do.
But do you think MMA fans have to only take one? Do you think you have to pick sides and
No,
hold it?
of
Like
course
they
not.
can
Of
honestly
course
cheer
not.
for Khabib, and he comes out and does his workout, and then say Conor came out, he might even get a bigger pop. But I think it's all right to like two different competitors. I don't think we have to throw our hat fully into the ring, but
But when you're talking about the guy who's been ripping Conor like crazy,
sure.
and you're in a quote unquote Conor city, I mean, this city is crawling with Irish.
There is heavy
You know what I
Irish
mean?
here.
This is a Conor town, man.
I
So
think you're
it's
kind of
crazy.
right, though. It's also, I think, that what you think, I'm thinking of, like, with Cormier, is that for a long time he was getting booed, mostly because he had the John Jones loyalists in the background, expecting the Great One to come back and just smash Cormier. So they were holding out hope. But now that that's pretty much been dashed, and they're kind of, you have all these people like, I feel like Cormier's getting, kind of looks like the good guy. Does look like the good guy. He looks like the honest fighter. So they're kind of, I think there's a certain goodwill been fostered since then. And same thing with Khabib. He wins. He's a beast. And I think that people just respect that. Like you said, they respect fighters. They respect people who like grind. They respect fighters that win. So, and also, Conor's losing all that good faith by just antics and not fighting. So.
Yeah. Well, it could be very interesting. I think we'll all hold our breath and see what happens tomorrow. But before we end this segment and with some good audio, I want to take it back over to Francis and Stipe and just get your thoughts a little bit. How excited you are on that fight, and if you feel you want to give us your prediction. I know I'm going to get some grief from certain people here because my pick has been opposite of all my other picks in life.
And you're a disgusting person.
Yes, I am. But your thoughts, Sandro, on that fight, and who are you taking for that main event?
Yeah, I'm so excited about this fight. I have been the minute they announced it. I was in Detroit. I watched, Ngannou provide us all with the knockout of the year. I think consensus knockout of the year. And seeing him do that live and seeing the way he carried himself, he just feels like a much bigger deal. It's a meteoric rise, considering only 4+ years ago he didn't know what the hell MMA was, and to be fighting for the heavyweight championship, given his background, given his story, which is now starting to become much better documented in more stories. Fascinating story. And on the other side, I love Stipe's story too. Here's a guy that's still a part-time firefighter. You put him in the right market, like a Cleveland, and the place, as we saw, the roof comes off. Yeah. It's just fantastic, right?
Speaking of the fire, did you guys see when the firefighters came up and gave him the little sweatshirt yesterday? It
was beautiful.
I thought that was awesome because you could see the emotion that Stipe got from it, but also seeing the other firefighters he's one of us and he's out destroying dudes. I was completely blown away by it. I was very, very moved. So we have I know there's been some clips out there from it, but if you guys don't know what I'm talking about, you'll see, search the web, find some clips. You'll see Stipe get a sweatshirt from some firefighters here in town. It was really cool to see.
It really was, and but putting that aside, the guy's coming off this amazing run of wins and knockouts, and there's so much on the line for him too. Even though it's kind of, I suppose, flying a little bit under the radar because everyone's just really emotionally invested in the potential of Ngannou providing us yet with another knockout and becoming the champion. But Stipe Miocic, if he wins tomorrow, will have the record for the most title defenses in the heavyweight division in UFC history, which is just crazy, and that just goes to show it hasn't been done before. You got Francis Ngannou, this Cameroonian mountain of a man, coming in, and in the promo he looks like he's been in the lab, being constructed in some high-tech facility. And in terms of my prediction, I'm going for a Francis Ngannou knockout. Trust me, I really believe Miocic can knock him out too. They're heavyweights, and he's got an incredible knockout run at the moment. But I'm just really invested in Francis. He's got that star quality, that X factor. When you just you guys have been in this sport, in this industry way longer than I have behind the scenes. You've seen fights up close and personal on so many occasions. You just know, you get this gut feeling when you see a fighter. That's a champion, and that's the feeling I get every time I've seen Francis Ngannou, especially as of late.
I dig it. Fiasco, I'm gonna leave you out on this one probably, unless you feel confident coming out and saying who.
Yeah, no, I do.
Right,
just because I'm going more with obviously I agree with everything you just said because exactly, but I'm gonna go the opposite route because I'm gonna let my heart play the decider role and go with the block O because I feel like Stipe is getting kind of counted out, and I do think that his record's strong. I'm not looking past the fact that Ngannou is the mountain that walks, and it's going to be a challenge, a crazy challenge. But I think Stipe's smart, and his coaches are smart, and I think that they're not going to make a kind of oversized mistake in there and play to Ngannou's game. And he's a champ, so I don't know. And I want to see that history made. So I, unlike some people on this table, I support Ohio.
That's a burn towards me, but I'll get to that in a second.
I think Ohio is a shithole country. To be honest with you.
Hold on, I got to turn this mic down. Hold on. Let me turn this mic up.
I thought you were just okay, we're rewinding this and we're going to delete that. I do think Ohio is a shithole country. But I live in Indiana, and Indiana's even more of a shithole country.
It's true.
You know what? I am picking Stipe.
Oh, look at this. I didn't see this coming.
You didn't?
No.
I agree. I mean, if Francis hits anything the right way, it's going down. And I'm including airplanes and aircraft carriers. He could hit an aircraft carrier and flip it off its feet like he did with Overeem.
He's gonna be our first responder in war. We're just gonna send Francis over to hit something.
Stipe, and we've seen Stipe has power, but Stipe don't have that kind of power.
Sure.
But he does have power, and I think he is more suited to being around in the third round
Right.
than perhaps Francis is. Now, you know, we've seen fights where guys say, well, I could be the best wrestler in the world, but I've never had to wrestle, so how does anybody know? Francis could be ready to go 10 rounds for all we know. He just hasn't had to do it. But I feel like as long as Stipe can get past the first round and maybe get past the first half of the second round, the fight's his to win. I think he'll be able to wear him down. I don't know that it goes the distance, but I think as long as he can withstand being able to get hit right on the chin, and if he does, as long as he can get through it kind of the way he and survive it the way he did in that Overeem fight in Cleveland. I mean, remember, he was about to get his ass kicked and lose his title.
Yep.
When he rallied and came back. If he can avoid a situation like that, I'm going to go with Stipe. But it would not surprise me one bit to see the thing done in 30 seconds and Stipe looking up at the ceiling. But I am taking Stipe.
Well, and before we hand it off to some audio here, I think that was the biggest part where any question marks for me, it's the stamina. It's the endurance. We see that Stipe can make it there. We've never seen Francis take those big, heavy, super strong, scary muscles deep into the rounds. And Fiasco, you noticed it. Well, both of us were shooting the warm-up or the workout, and you were as well. And I know there was that point where after that first round of hitting, Francis looked like he got a little winded.
Yeah, so like,
he was throwing those punches extremely hard, and I said there could have been an adrenaline spike with all the crowd. He was playing to it. He was putting a little extra pop, a little extra zing in there. But it's hard to, when you're used to really looking for those fine things, like to see that fine detail of, okay, he's really starting to break a sweat. Like he's really looks like he might be getting a little tired. That's the only question mark that I have when it comes to Francis. But there is no question when it comes to that power. I just feel that even if he doesn't get a completely clean shot on Stipe, while he is tough and he has a great chin, I think he might be overconfident in that chin and be willing to stick it out a little bit more. That if Francis is able in that first 1 to 2 rounds to land even 60% shots multiple times on that chin, I think that's going to be enough to drop him. But Stipe, like you said, does have some power. So unless there's any other final thoughts on this particular...
So here's the thing. This table, right? We're 2-2,
2
right?
and 2.
Yeah.
So let me give you a little spoiler alert for on midday Friday when everybody's looking to the MMA Junkie staff picks. We have 14 people to do these things now. And since I'm the one that has to corral them all, spoiler alert, but it's right down the frickin' middle.
No shit.
So that's crazy. I mean, that's how it was the first show of the season too.
Yeah.
With Stevens and Choi, we were 7-7. But I think that just shows you where I feel like probably the fans' perception of this fight is as well. Like,
Probably, yeah.
man, we could see Stipe just get lifted off his feet and his head in the third row, or we could
Or
see him
not.
just like beat the shit out of this guy like in blue collar Stipe firefighter fashion.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to it, man. It's a cool fight, and like you get a little bit jaded sometimes when you do this stuff long enough. And there's enough events that I go to where I'm like, I don't care. I'm just here to work. But then sometimes there are fights where you're like, this is a cool ass fight.
Yeah, this is legitimately
one of
like
them.
an electric. Just can't wait for Saturday.
It is great to see the heavyweight fights. There's nothing more exciting than a couple big, dangerous dudes just getting in that people just get excited for.
And I've got a feeling this Boston crowd
they'll
is
go
gonna
nuts.
really make an amazing atmosphere. During the course of the evening, there's so many hometown fighters fighting on this card, as every UFC card. But I think Boston, perhaps unlike other places, really gets behind their own to a different level. So that'll be cool in terms of building to a crescendo before that heavyweight title fight.
The heavyweight fights that I've been to, especially when you have guys that are just scary, like when you're around him, you're just like, wow, that he's a scary, scary person. I've had legitimate fear butterflies in my stomach at press row before, thinking about things like, God, like Frank Mir could get really, really seriously hurt by Brock Lesnar. Like I could watch a near murder here. I don't want to see it. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Like things like that.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of fear that like I feel like Francis can put in people too, which is what makes this so interesting. You know
what's funny? Just to segue from what you were just saying there, Matt, I actually asked Francis today, and I asked him, I said, are you scared of your power? Are you scared of what your potentially capable of doing with just one punch doesn't even think about it. It's like, why would I be afraid of my power?
Yeah.
No one's hitting me with this. That was his response. He was like, why would I have to be afraid of my power? No one's hitting me with this. And then in terms of doing damage in the octagon, absolutely has no care.
Hey, you know what?
in the
I'll say
world.
one other thing too on this. If Francis wins, speaking as a guy who got to visit the continent of Africa for the first time last year, what a cool situation that puts the UFC in, really, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, man.
I was in South Africa, which is kind of, it's a little bit different than like, Central Africa, like where Cameroon is, and I'm assuming a very, very different country Cameroon would be than South Africa. But fantastic situation potentially for the UFC to be able to break into that continent and do some things there. It could be very cool.
You know what's crazy? I think there's fans, journalists, and this is still a relatively new sport. How cool would it be if we, as a sport, as an industry, as a collective, as a community, got our version of Rumble in the Jungle? You take Francis Ngannou if he becomes a champion, and whether you do the Stipe rematch or you give him another contender, just to take that entire event to, I don't know, somewhere safe in Africa, right? That you can run an event, open sky arena. It's not going to rain in there. Take a good time of year, right? Just visually,
Soccer stadium in Cape Town, man. I'm
Right.
telling you, that would be
cool.
sickening.
I'm down for that, no
Yeah.
doubt about it. But how cool would that be to take every once in a while? I think the UFC does landmark events. I think of the Rogers Centre in Toronto, and the
Ronda Holly fight.
the Ronda Holly fight, and in Australia, and then they did the Brazil, all the all
Rio,
Brazil
the
card.
first Rio
Exactly. Doing something like they did an all-nighter in Stockholm, the arena with Gustafsson and Anthony
UFC
Johnson.
119 in Indianapolis.
There you go. And every once in a while, I think they need to do a landmark event. And I think this would be easily top 5 landmark events, especially in terms of how they could potentially, all the promotional tools there to build up an event like this would be incredible.
Dibs. Dibs on everything. Sorry, it's done. I'm the only one that's been
I
there,
just
so
wanted to
I
also
got
say, by
dibs.
the way, it was really lad culture of you to say 333 or 222.
222, I see,
Yeah, that's very lad culture.
And 223.
But that's a whole nother discussion. But let's hear from the champ himself. Let's hear from Stipe Miocic when it was brought up about him being the underdog and talking power and all these things. And we'll let him tell you what he thinks about all that nonsense.
Everyone's talking about Francis's power. Can he be concerned with your power?
I hope so. I mean, a lot of people don't think that, and then they wake up looking at the lights.
Can you stand with him? I know that might not be the
I can
case.
stand with anyone, but I'm going to do what I do. I have the best coaches in the world. I have a great game plan, and I'm going to walk out and execute, and want to walk out and still.
You concerned about his power?
Oh, I'm concerned about everyone's power, not just his. I mean, it's a heavyweight division. It doesn't matter who it is. Guy might not be a great striker, but this takes one in the heavyweight division.
You seem loose this week on stuff we've seen posted online with you.
That's how I am every week, every fight week, man. I'm always loose.
How much does that help you when you have to go into a fight like this?
Oh, always, man. Listen, it's business, man. It's a sport. I'm going to do my job. I love what I do. If I didn't love what I do, I wouldn't be doing it. And the minute I stop love doing this, I'm going to be out. I'm done. Wow. But I love doing it. I love hanging out with my coaches. We're having a great time. Tonight, go work out, get a good dinner, go play some euchre, and call it a night.
You used to not love this part of it.
I hated it.
Do you still hate it?
Especially you, yes. I'm joking. I was a complete liar.
Over the last couple of years, everybody's noticed.
Yeah.
You're more comfortable in this kind of environment.
Yeah, just like anything, just like with fighting. The more you do it, the better it gets. It's just, I think it's just anything, it's just, I don't know, man. It's fun, if it wasn't for the fans, we wouldn't be here right now. So really, I'm trying to have a conversation, and you're I'm joking. What's up?
They keep saying they were afraid of him, and they never got his power. What do you think of that?
Whatever makes him feel good at night, whatever makes him sleep. I mean, honestly, I'm afraid of no man. I'm afraid of my wife. Not him, though.
I mean, not to imply that you were anywhere, but he does look different. I mean, some of his knockouts have been incredible to watch. I mean, do you see him as being in any way different from anyone else that you fought? I mean,
Everyone's different. Everyone's the same. No question. He's a big dude. Hits hard. I mean, he's going to come out throwing bombs, and I'm just going to be ready for it. Of course. He's a tough guy. I'm going to go out there and do my best. I'm going to give it all I got, like I always do. I'm going to go out there and fight. He knows he's going to be in a fight. I hope he knows he's coming. There's a fight coming this Saturday. It's going to happen. I'm putting a fight on him.
You seem passionate about making that point.
I do every fight. Listen, I don't care who it is. mean, I'm going to go out there, I'm going to do what I got to do to win.
Stipe, when we spoke in London last year, I asked you about fights in Cleveland, and you said that you wanted to stay away from Cleveland.
I mean, listen, I love fighting in Cleveland. I do. But it was tough. The first time was tough. I wasn't used to it. And if we did it again, 100% I'd do it again. There's no question. And I would take a different step back. And I feel like I was Ticketmaster. I was trying, traveling with tickets. But listen, I love Cleveland. I love to fight there again. And it's tough, but I know how to handle it this time.
But saying that, are you enjoying it more now than it's not?
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah, I don't have to worry about anyone else. Everyone texts me 1,000 texts. What are you doing tonight? I'm like, I'm getting ready for a fight. And just doing my thing.
Given your resume, do you feel a little disrespected if people calling you the
How would you feel?
Yes.
Okay then.
Is that your answer?
Yeah. I'm used to it, dude. Honestly, I'm so used to it by now. Honestly, it just, what else? I love being the underdog because I shut everyone up. And then they make up some excuse why I won. That guy wasn't ready or some shit. Who knows? I don't know. I don't really care.
Fans favor the sort of the flashiness over the consistent victories over big names.
That's what the sport's all about. That's what the sport's all about, man. It's like a Jerry Springer show, man. It's all about the soap opera. Bring a new guy in. Maybe we'll see what happens Saturday night. I'm walking out and still, unfortunately, no one's gonna be champ until I leave. So.
It's not like you don't have the knockouts too. You do.
Yeah, 100% I do. But listen, I'm gonna go out there. I'm gonna do my job. That's what I do every time. I know he's a big, tough guy, strong, hits hard, but so do I. I pack a little punch. I might be a little smaller than him, but all good.
All right, and there's Stipe, and it's good to hear from the champ, and he certainly believes in himself. But you know who else believes in themselves? Our new guest on the show here to the right, Danny Austin.
What up, what up, what up?
That was good. See, if you did all your little, screams like that.
Called voice effects.
I was going to something else.
like Geordie LaForge from Star Trek Next Generation.
Oh, yeah. Do a laser sound. All right, do a robot.
Can you do a Boston accent?
That's what it sounds like to me.
And I just realized I completely gave the wrong reference. Geordie LaForge from Star Trek Next Generation wasn't known for any sound effects.
He was
You're thinking of the
I
guy
know.
from...
I'm thinking of the guy from Police Academy. How did I have messed that one up?
That's kind of like
I
just
didn't know what
saying...
the hell you were talking about. I was like,
you just went with it.
Yeah.
We'll just leave that one alone. That was a Me Too moment. No, just kidding.
Oh my God.
All right. So hey, today we all got the luxury of going to a place that most of us probably don't ever get to go to. And we got to go to Fenway Park for the media day action. So I don't know, you guys. I know you guys are sports fans. I know not everybody here knew some of the big stories or just the history behind Fenway Park. But what are your guys' thoughts? That was pretty cool to get a chance to go there, right?
I mean, for me, just being in the place where Kurt Schilling, put paint on his hand and then rubbed it on the back of his sock in the 2004 World Series, that fake
paint.
blood was such a moment. Just for me as a Toronto Blue Jays fan, the place where Manny Ramirez and David Ortiz are alleged to have put PEDs in their butt. Just being in that space, what a moment.
The history that you knew.
Go Jays.
Yeah, I mean, just based off that history alone, it made today that much more special for me as well. No, I'm just joking.
You have no idea what I'm talking about.
No, A, I have no idea what you're talking about, but B, I haven't really followed baseball at all in my life. I'm familiar with it. I'm familiar with the big franchise teams here in the US.
So there's a bat involved.
Yeah, and I already have cricket.
I was gonna say you're gonna make a cricket reference in there somewhere.
No, we'll probably hear crickets if I do, but. Just being there and just knowing the history, knowing it's the oldest ballpark in America, learning a little bit about the monster,
the Green Monster,
right? And it was actually cool to be there with other Bostonian media guys because they were like, "Oh, this is so cool for me to be in here and work, and it's really cool." But yeah, it was cool. Obviously, I don't have any emotional attachment to it, or whatsoever. But I suppose to share a story that does kind of tie into my roots in England, the same owners of the Boston Red Sox also own Liverpool FC. So what the owners did, now Liverpool FC had or has still an old football stadium, an old football arena, right? And for years and years and years, there was talks about just knocking it all down and building a brand new one from scratch, a modern state-of-the-art stadium. But remind me, who owns the Boston Red Sox? Anyone here can help me with that?
John Henry.
John Henry, right? So John Henry wanted to do the same thing to Liverpool FC that he did here at Fenway Park, which is keep the original and just try and make it better by modernizing it and refurbishing it. And that's exactly what they've done and what they are doing with Anfield, because they care so much about the history of the ground. It means so much to people that you can't knock it down, and you can't just start from scratch just to modernize and become corporate America all over it. So from that perspective, it was pretty cool for me.
And I think that John Henry, I mean, the history of Red Sox is being a bunch of losers. And I think that John Henry now owning Liverpool, we can celebrate Michael Thomas's 1989 Premier League winning goal for Arsenal.
What hotel are you staying at?
Come at me. And I mean, like, truly, possibly the greatest moment in Arsenal history came against a John Henry team. So for me personally, it's John Henry just represents some of the great losses in history, and it was so fucking cool.
Well, who knows what losses we're going to see this Saturday, but speaking to all the people that were there, they had quite a selection of fighters that were there today. They also did have some pretty tasty lobster rolls and clam chowder. Did you guys partake?
I didn't have any chowder, unfortunately. Chowder? No chowder for me.
You didn't?
No.
You don't like chowder, or you don't like seafood?
I'm not a seafood guy, no.
Really?
I had like chicken Alfredo for dinner today.
You missed out on the lobster rolls too. That was tight.
I keep hearing
for 2 years. I thought that I had a shellfish allergy based on a weird reaction that I got like literally 2 years ago, and then a week and a half ago I ate shrimp by accident and didn't get a reaction. So I allowed myself to eat the clam chowder today. It was delicious. And guys, I'm not allergic to shellfish.
now you got to figure out what it was.
I have no idea.
Good stuff.
Norovirus. You had norovirus.
Right. I hope so.
Yeah.
At least
we've been hearing about bad bouts of norovirus here lately. Well, I guess was there anybody that stood out? Well, eventually we're gonna talk DC and Vulcan, but were there any people there that you were excited to see? Somebody that maybe said some quote that pulled you out of left field? I mean, who stood out for you today?
I mean, we're talking about DC later, so
yeah, we're gonna talk DC.
Yeah, so I mean, DC is the best interview on most fight weeks these years, and he was amazing. But I will say, Volante was just fantastic. Yeah. He always is, but he was
very relaxed. Yeah,
he was very relaxed.
And we'll get to a quote because I'm going to play because me and Maddie actually happened to run into Chris Weidman, so we actually got a little update, and so I'll play that little audio in a second. But John was very, very relaxed today. Very loose.
And I will say that, you guys all operate primarily online. I operate in print, so I am looking for a certain type of quote oftentimes. And if you're going to drop comparing Francis Ngannou to Brock Lesnar, that really, really works for me. And Volante just basically spent 2 minutes explaining how both Lesnar and Francis were guys who your average person would be terrified to be in an elevator with. And he's good friends with Stipe. Let's keep that in mind. But he was like, look, we saw what happens when one of those guys hits an elite MMA guy when Kane and Brock fought, and we're going to see the same thing. And I'm just really grateful that he knew to give me such a print-ready comment because it was great. And, he's a charming guy. It was fun. You guys said it earlier. I was only interested in the top 4. So it was just nice for him to, throw me that bone.
Sure. Anybody else besides DC and Vulcan that stood out for you today?
You know what's crazy? This is the first time that I've been involved in a media day for a pay-per-view card where I haven't been able to talk to basically anyone outside of the top 4. It's crazy. The DC scrum was about 15 minutes. Then I was waiting in line for Volcan. And then I finally got to Francis, finally got to Stipe. And then honestly, by the time I'd wrapped up those 4 interviews or those scrums, I had time and I wanted to get to Gian Volante, and I co-signed what Danny said. Volante was really good value today. Yeah. He always kind of is. He's just a fun dude to talk to. Yeah. And me and Chris Weidman almost pulled off a prank on him right towards the end, which unfortunately couldn't happen because Ariel Helwani wanted to do his one-on-one with him, so it kind of got in our way. Bad.
Hawani, man.
Always,
Come on,
always
Hawani.
trying to kill fun.
Boo.
Take his accreditation away.
Yeah. So it's crazy. Like, you know, this is the first time in a very long time where all I spoke to today were the top 4 guys and Gian Vellante, and I got a quick interview with Chris Weidman as well. I didn't speak to the local guys. We got time with most of them yesterday at the open workouts anyway, I suppose. So it was kind of good to see kind of their passion and just starting to flow with the prospect of kind of having a home game, and TD Garden means so much to these guys, and especially fighting in front of their home fans, right? But I think everything's just about this main and co-main, but definitely the main event, you know, and that's what's going to sell this card, and that's what people are talking about, because like I keep saying, it is the most anticipated heavyweight title fight in maybe the last 5-6 years, you know. It's insane. I'm really like anxious to see this fight go down.
And I love all you've been bringing a bunch of new technology toys and stuff, and I happened to stumble onto one of those today.
Right.
What was that you were streaming?
Yeah,
because I saw you in there. You were setting something up, and I didn't realize that you were streaming live. So.
Yeah, well, you should know, because we've been speaking about. You've seen kind of the technical difficulties of having this device for the last 3 events.
Well, I didn't realize that you were just going to have it running because there was nobody in the chair.
Yeah,
I thought you were doing a setup for something.
It
else.
is worth noting that that piece of technology we're using is the first time that I've been like, the robots are going to win the war. Like that's next level.
Skynet is happening.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, so it's a Mevo Plus live kit. So kind of like, you know, the majority of my gig here is to live stream in India on the Facebook page, and part of like learning more about what works.
That's MMA India for those
MMAindia.com. So part of what I've been kind of learning over the last kind of 6 weeks covering these events for MMA India is, number one, I didn't quite understand how big Facebook was specifically in India compared to all the other social media platforms like Instagram and Twitter and YouTube. It's number one, but like a country mile. People check it out for news and video and, you know, everything, right? So
fake news.
Yeah, fake news, right? So that was the first thing. The other thing is the kit that I'm actually using. It's great for live streaming in terms of high def broadcast quality and things of that nature, right? So it's literally somebody on the other end can, you know, once the stream ends, can essentially rip the video and then start to top and tail all the individual scrums and all the individual interviews to put out on YouTube and then write stories and things of that nature. So it's funny because by the time I end my day, the core team, pretty much everyone, the 95% of the workforce that works on the website and the outlet are based in India, and they're just waking up. So I'm literally creating content for them waking up in the morning to edit it, write and transcribe and get stories out. But listen, for me, it's a pretty sweet gig. I literally just stand there, press start, press stop, participate in the interview process. I don't have to do any produced content. I'm a one-man band here.
Sure.
I'm doing some stuff on Twitter and social media for these guys. So all in all, I can't complain. It's a pretty sweet gig.
Yeah, I just wish there was a little flag or something that says, "Hey, by the way, this is rolling, so don't look like an asshole and jump in the chair and start talking to Sandu about his camera."
What accent did he do?
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know what it was.
It was
I think
Scottish
I
or something.
I think that was trying to be Sandu.
Considering the
He's being a racist.
Yes. Considering the X amount of years, you know, Cold Coffee has as a videographer, I'm surprised that the red light at the top of the actual device didn't give you some sort of like.
Toggle light, yeah.
To be fair,
it's weird. Have you
It's
seen it?
it's a circular light.
It's a
yeah.
circular light that you don't know. I didn't really even look at because, you know, I always find my lens and I'm like staring lovingly
and like
into it.
It was a good shot.
Yeah, that thing is like a circular computer of death. Like that is literally a robot that could kill all of us if it wanted to. Like I don't know if it's on or off.
Eventually it'll wake up.
Eventually it's gonna remember it all and it's gonna come after us.
It'll be mounted on
Can I also
Sandu's neck.
toss one more Media Day thing in? And
Sure.
I'm not trying to be political.
We're going to go back to Media Day, but before we do
fair
that,
enough,
because you were talking about Weidman, me and Maddie were able to chat with him for a second. He gave a quick little update on his health. So just listen to this little bit and let Chris tell you how he's doing, and then we'll come back and we'll talk some more Media Day.
Let's talk about your homies that you got here first. Talk about John first, obviously, and the opportunity he has in a fight like this, main card.
Yeah, he's on the pay-per-view of a huge card, third from the top. So does that be considered the top, right? So he's right before the co-main.
Yeah.
Which is a huge opportunity for him to really showcase his skills. He's a guy that he's fighting that is tough, but it's a fight that I feel like John could showcase a lot of his skills. So it's a good opportunity.
When we sat down with him yesterday, he talked about having guys hurt in the last two fights, you know, both Cummins and Shogun, and not going in with that killer instinct. Is that something that you've helped him work on and try and track down leading into this fight?
You know, it's all about just, kind of, I want him to be able to follow his instincts and not ever be worried about slowing down or anything like that. I'm not worried about the end, just fighting in the moment. And when he does that, he's unbeatable. And sometimes when you have a guy hurt, you've seen a lot of times where guys expend so much energy trying to finish them, then all of a sudden they're stuck in that octagon for a couple rounds, and they're not the same fighter they were. So I think that could get into fighters' heads, and it shouldn't be,
I mean, is that something you've experienced in fights, like that there's head games that go on with you as you're in the middle of such a physical situation?
It's all mental, man. Yeah, the whole thing is a head game. You're fighting yourself in there, fighting all, self-talking the whole time, taking out negative thoughts. It's a constant battle.
Talk to us a little bit about Stipe, because now you get to kind of support him this week too, and what's that relationship been like? Because it hasn't been going on for that long, but
no, we've been friends for a
pretty
long
good
time.
buds.
We've been friends for a long time. I love Stipe. He's a great guy. He's funny. So I'm hoping that he goes out there and he's going to break the record, I believe, for the most wins ever as a heavyweight champion. So he's a really tough test with Francis Ngannou. So again, a huge stage against a guy who's highly hyped, and there's a lot of talk behind him. So if he's able to go out there and finish a guy like that, there's really there's no more doubting.
Did you work with him a lot for this fight?
No, we worked before the last fight though.
For his fight or for your fight? For your fight, right?
No, for his fight, before his fight, and my fight, we worked. Yeah, it was like we were around the same time.
Obviously, I got to ask you for what your pick is in that fight, but I think I know where you're going to go.
Oh yeah, Stipe. I just think listen, Francis hits you, you're in trouble. But any heavyweight gets hit, they're in trouble. Stipe has 5 knockouts too, right, in the last couple fights.
4 in a row, I think, for
row.
sure.
So Stipe can knock him out as well, and he's got very quick hands. He's battle tested. Francis, there's still question marks with, how is he going to hold up against a wrestling pace and 5 rounds and being hit with some good shots. So there's a lot more question marks, I feel like, Francis. And Stipe has way more ways to win, in my opinion.
You've done some analyst work, so give us the co-main event too, can you? Cormier and Volkan. And
yeah, so honestly, I haven't seen Volkan fight that much. I know he's a good fighter on his feet. He's dangerous with his hands. But I feel like Cormier, again, is just going to be too much for him.
How about you, man? You personally, what's going on with you? When are we going to see you back?
Yeah, so I fought in July against Gastelum, and then I injured my hand in that fight, and so I had a surgery, and it was a tough surgery. So I'm out on the sidelines right now trying to heal it up. This is the scar right there. You can see it. I don't know if that's on camera, but it's just taking a while. They restructure a ligament, so. I guess ACLs are going, they do that similar for the ACL too, and it takes a while. So hopefully a couple more months, a month maybe, and it heals up and I don't have sharp pain in there. Right now I can punch the bag and the mitt's all right, but when any type of grappling and when my thumb gets hit in different directions, it's really painful. So I'm not to the point where I can really train the way I need to yet.
Can that work as a positive thing for you, as kind of a refresher just in general? Obviously, the win over Gastelum was so huge for you. We saw how emotional you got needing to come back from the rough patches. But will being off for maybe a year or so be a good thing?
Yeah, I hope it's not going to be a year, but I think it'll be a good thing. I fought those 3 fights in 8 months. My rough patch. So it was really quick. I just wanted to get right back in there and to get a good win over a guy like Gastelum, and to see him have that success against Bisping not too far after that, I think solidified me up that I'm back. All those losses were great learning experience for me. I don't think anybody's ever did what I did. No one's ever done what I actually accomplished. 9-0 in fighting the greatest of all time. I had such a fast rise up into the UFC rankings. I was in the UFC at 4-0. So I didn't really have any steps backwards until that Luke fight, and it took a little bit of time to deal with, and I got the hard times out of the way, and I learned from them, and right now I feel great, and I feel like I'm the best in the world. I just have to get healthy and be able to show that. When you watch a fight like Gastelum and Bisping, as a fan, I'm sure you're watching going, hey, cool, great fight, right? But then as a business person for yourself, you got to be also sitting there going, this actually is fantastic for me that he won this fight. Yeah, it's good, but I don't get really into that type of stuff because at the end of the day, I don't know what it really does for me, to be honest.
does more for media and fans than it does for you guys as fighters?
Yeah, because I don't hang my hat on that. I know I have to just win one fight at a time, and good things happen. And him having a good fight against Bisping it wasn't really something I was really surprised about. I know a lot of other people were, but I don't know if it actually does too much for me.
Sure. All right, man. We'll look forward to seeing you back again later this year, man. Appreciate it. Thanks, boss.
All right, and there's Chris Weidman. And sorry, Danny, I rudely interrupted you. You wanted to tell us your very important story. I want to make sure that didn't sound condescending.
Not my small little story at all.
It's not a small little story.
No, I wanted to say, because you asked about sort of highlights of media day, and I was trying to avoid the big fighters, but Francis Ngannou did, to his credit, I asked him, he is from Cameroon, he is from a West African country. I asked him about Trump's shithole countries comment, which was directly related to Africa, so I felt it was appropriate to ask a prominent African athlete, and he took a very strong stance, which I think is, regardless of your politics, is very brave for anyone to do 2 days before the biggest fight, the biggest, realistically, like, professional event of their life.
Sure.
And I don't know, I really quickly, I didn't feel totally comfortable not mentioning that as my highlight, because I think he took a stance, and as a result, like, it would be really brutal of me to kind of like just shove it under the carpet and not make mention of it. So that's that. Yeah.
No, I dig it. Well, let's get to the other guys. We talked a little bit about Francis and Stipe. Let's switch gears and let's talk a little bit about DC and Vulcan. I mean, how excited are you guys for that fight? I mean, and what did you think when you saw him at Media Day? I mean, we see DC was very, very loose. But hop on in and
I'm gonna say this: we're gonna miss DC when he's gone, man. I honestly think, like, as a straight up, like, as a guy, I don't forget press conferences, forget all that, forget remove John Jones, which you could say about just about every part of DC's career, and I think he's the best media day fighter on the entire UFC roster. He will talk about anything. He's funny. He's analytical. He, to me, if I'm gonna give another guy credit, I asked him, I was like, why do you keep bringing up losing to John Jones? Like, you didn't even technically lose anymore. And he gave me like a 3.5 minute breakdown of why he was impressed with what John Jones did to him. I just think DC is incredible, and there's no one else in the UFC like him. And he says he's retiring at 40. He's 38 now. People should appreciate him while he's here, because I'm so happy every time I see him during media week.
I dig it.
Yeah, Cormier was on top form yesterday. Just kind of give a quick recap. He comes into the Reebok headquarter ring and comes into pretty much an all-round warm kind of reception from the crowd. Does the workout. Now, typically and throughout the evening, the UFC's Megan O'Leary was essentially conducting all the interviews with all the fighters. Before she could even finish her first question or the first words were coming out of her mouth, Cormier goes into, which is pretty much a pro wrestling gimmick on the mic, and cuts an amazing promo, just basically takes the microphone away from Megan and says, "I've got it from here, thank you very much, love." And he continues to walk around the ring and address all the fans, and by the end of it, it was like he was in his hometown of San Jose, California, because they were really, on his side, louder than they were before. And then he followed that by giving us a great media scrum. And thankfully, the member of the UFC PR staff allowed me to sneak in one final question, which actually I was dumbfounded. None of us had actually bothered to ask him during the scrum itself, me included, because I'd actually already asked a few questions beforehand. And I wanted to ask him what he thought about John Jones taking a polygraph test to kind of prove his innocence in this kind of ongoing, legal and, suspension issue that he's got under USADA. And Cormier, right off the cuff, before he walks off from the podium, he basically says, even Ted Bundy passed the polygraph test. It was just a brilliant line.
Then Ted Bundy killed the man who did
which
the
is
test.
false, which is fake news.
I know. I was like,
right?
he didn't.
Yeah, he did not.
Still, it's a good line.
It's a damn good line. And that's what I'm saying, and that's what Danny's referring to. Because anytime you put a camera in front of Cormier or a microphone, he's going to deliver. And you're absolutely, I 100% agree with what you're saying, Danny. We need to enjoy him more. I kind of feel like the fans are, more warmer to him now than they have been in the past. And again, unfortunately or fortunately for Cormier, it is linked to John Jones and what he's been going through. But it's a testament to Cormier that he's kept the division ticking on and moving forward. What other division does a guy that comes in, has 3 great performances within a 12-month period, and gets a title shot immediately? It doesn't really happen in the UFC, right? And here we have Volkan Ozdemir coming in. He's a fellow European, but when you look at the credentials, he was essentially brought in as Anthony Johnson's, sparring partner, and DC's just got so many more years of experience, and the confidence that oozes out of Cormier. How can you pick against the guy, right? So I'm looking forward to the fight. It's a great kind of, I suppose, table setter for the main event. And like we've spoken about a couple of times now, this is essentially a 2-fight event for me and for most people. So I'm really looking forward to it. Yeah.
I also still think DC is a top 5 pound for pound guy in the world. I did when he fought John Jones. I think he lost to the number 1 guy pound for pound in the world, with some funny business going on there too. Like, this is a secretly great fight. Mm-hmm. I think we all know it's not secretly a great fight, but it's secretly a better fight than people are giving it credit for.
Sure.
So I just want to
it's tough when you're paired with this great heavyweight fight, and you're gonna get that kind of also ran status. It's gonna get overshadowed, I suppose. But you're right, it shouldn't.
And this was on Twitter. I think Mike Bond actually tweeted it when it happened. Like, when was the last time we had heavyweight and light heavyweight on the same card? Like, this is special. It's why I don't care that I literally there's a guy named Danny IGE, I think. He would literally his name. I don't know what his last name is. Ige. It's I swear to God, if you look at the card,
IGE.
What is his last name? I don't know what that is, and I'm not embarrassed about it because
the Danimal. The Danimal.
Ige. I've been called the Danimal my whole damn life. So I don't know. This is an amazing fight, and I personally, it's weird. I feel guilty because I look at this fight and I'm like, well, Ozdemir's got got the chance. He's got that knockout power, and I just totally dismiss it because I just think Cormier is such a special fighter. Meanwhile, I'm like, well, Stipe and Ngannou's got that knockout power, and I don't dismiss it at all. I'm so inconsistent with what I do. So
what's great, and you'll hear it in this audio that I'm about to play shortly, and when Daniel really, oddly enough, gives a lot of respect to Volkan in the sense that he had said earlier, this kid, the young guy, the new blood that's coming in, and he talks about why guys like him are good for the division because he's not going to be around forever. And when you look at the light heavyweight division, even when you look at the heavyweight division, it's been so sporadic. And I think what's exciting is when we see this new blood. So we see a guy like Francis coming, injecting all this energy and pop in the heavyweight division. I think it's good that now we're seeing these cats that are coming up through the light heavyweight to kind of inject a little bit of energy into it as well. So, not that you ever want to say a guy like DC, he's a gatekeeper, especially when he's already admittedly said he's getting near the end of his career. And he's still very active and he's still very good and he's still the fucking champ, But, what are your thoughts on that when you see guys like this? Are we going to start seeing, do you think maybe the time is now that we're going to start seeing, do I have to pay Bruce Buffer or somebody for saying that? Maybe the UFC, the time is now? I feel like Bruce is that's my copyright. That's my copyright. Well, what do you guys think about that?
Well, I do think that DC even said at the press conference, I believe it was at the end of December, where he said he never expected to be around to fight this next generation of guys.
Yeah.
He is 38, and he's now fighting these guys in their late 20s who are coming into their prime. And I actually don't know that anything that happens from here on out really affects DC's legacy. He's going to be the same guy. He's the guy who beat Anthony Johnson and Gustafsson, and unfortunately couldn't beat John Jones. He is now fighting this next group of guys who are coming up, and I know we don't know other than Ozdemir who they are, but
but there is a feeling that they're coming.
You get the feeling that they're coming. It's in with the out or out with the in. I don't know whatever
the old, in the new.
Yeah. Oh my God, I'm so glad you're articulate because I am not. But I do feel this is not a fight that necessarily does much for Cormier beyond him reaffirming his status as the champion after what happened with Jones. And I don't know. I think he started off talking trash. He's mostly just made fun of Ozdemir. I think he is ready to put guys over in that old wrestling sense.
He got something about his outfit today. I couldn't quite hear what he was saying when they were starting to walk away. And it's not because he waited till they were so far away before he turned back around and started talking junk.
And I think he wants to go out and beat these guys, but I don't think he wants to disparage them as athletes. I guess that's part of it. I think he does want this next group of light heavyweights.
So he's already thinking like an elder statesman.
I actually do think he is.
Yeah, so it's like he needs to win. He needs to hype the fight, but at the same time, he can't destroy the sport. He's like, this is, these are definitely legitimate guys. I'm gonna beat them, but guess what? These are your top runners. So yeah,
he's made fun of Ozdemir for no one paying attention to him on Twitter. Like, I mean, he hasn't really been like criticized him as a fighter. You know what I mean? So yeah, and I mean, I think that Sandu is the pro wrestling guy. I'm pretty sure, like in this table, but there's a long history of the established veterans in pro wrestling spending that last time making sure that they do hype up the next group of guys, and I think DC
like a bit of mentoring almost.
Yeah, and it's different in MMA always, but I do think DC is engaging in that a little bit.
It's interesting.
I mean, I totally agree. I mean, what Daniel's doing, he's basically holding this whole division on his shoulders. And it's unfortunate that he's been almost, given that responsibility, almost like a poison chalice, given what John Jones has done with his career. And people still question as Cormier is he the real champion. It's just a bit of a mess because of John Jones. But he's a true professional. He's a company man. He's somebody that you want kind of like representing you on your side rather than against you. It's a credit to the UFC. And you know what, Danny, we may lose him in a couple of years inside the octagon, but we all know that he's going to be around for many, many years. He's a great analyst. He's a great commentator. He's the kind of guy that will have a long broadcast career, and I'm sure that will give us many kind of new memories, especially with some of his amazing mic work as of late.
I get it. And let's just get the brass tacks and we'll close it out. And I think you guys already kind of said it, but who are you picking in this?
I'm picking Cormier. I'll go with the history. I'll go with the fact that the only guy that's ever beaten him is John Jones. And credit to what Volkan's been able to do in such a short amount of time. But there's levels to this game, and Cormier is just at least 3 or 4 levels above where Ozdemir is now, and I will be actually very, very shocked and surprised if Volkan is able to pull off the upset. And to be honest with you, if he does, I just wonder what that means for the future of Daniel Cormier. Like, does he actually kind of pack it in, given coming off the loss to John Jones and coming off a loss to someone that pretty much everyone universally thinks he's going to beat? That would be an amazing story if that's the scenario that we're presented with come Saturday night. But I don't think that's what's going to happen. I think we're going to see a classic Daniel Cormier performance, get him to the ground and choke him out with a rear naked choke.
Boom. Fiasco.
Yeah, I agree. I'm going with Cormier. And I do think you're right, though. If he did lose, I think he's going to jump up that 2 years to like, I'm done. I don't want to go back and like scale that wall again. I think it's 2 years as the champ. And then, but if he loses, I see him just probably retiring in the cage.
Yeah, it doesn't make for interesting podcasting having all of us agree. But, I mean, I really do believe, like, Daniel, I still think he's top 5 pound for pound. At the time that him and Jones fought, I thought that they might have been 1 and 2 pound for pound. And that's no knock on DJ or whatever. But I really, like, I'm sorry, like, Volkan Ozdemir, I respect you. You've got clear knockout power. But, like, you've beaten Jimmy Manuwa. Like, let's look at who Cormier's beaten. He's beaten Alexander Gustafsson. He has beaten Anthony Johnson twice.
Yeah.
And he confused Anthony Johnson somehow without hitting him enough that Anthony Johnson just stopped being Anthony Johnson. Like, this is just a
walked away from the sport.
Just quit.
like Daniel Cormier is so freaking good. And I mean, honestly, Volkan Ozdemir, respect him. He's done amazing things. But I do think we need to step back and at some point just acknowledge that, like, remove John Jones and Daniel Cormier is the best fighter of his generation in a lot of ways. I mean, he's beaten everyone. He's beaten higher level competition than any of the guys who have had really, really good runs at the top of their division. So, yeah, I mean, for me, this is a no-brainer fight. And I would love to see Cormier, personally, like, do what his teammates do, which is get on top of guys and really lay beatings on people. And I think he's probably due.
I love it. All right, and I'll keep mine short and sweet. I'm joining the chorus here. I did lean towards DC. I'm gonna jump on the bandwagon with everybody else here. I think DC. I think he's just too much.
You didn't want to betray your country in any other way.
No, I know. Come on. But I think he gets it done. And we did happen to catch up with him today. And outside of just talking the typical fight stuff, young Matt Erickson, I'm gonna steal it from Mike Bond for a second, asked Daniel to comment a little bit about Volkan's age, clear up the comment, about the kid and whatnot. And he also brought up his training partner, Luke Rockhold, who now has been seen on a lot of these videos training alongside Volkan, and what that has done for him. Is that upsetting him? What his sort of feelings are on that. And he was very candid and open about the situation. And we'll see what you guys think. But thank you guys for joining us. We're gonna hand it off with this audio. And we're gonna send it back to Morgan and take it
Morgan
from there.
in the LA office.
But I thank you guys very much for being on the podcast. And for you guys, here is Daniel Cormier.
DC, yesterday you said something with us. You called him a kid, which is legit, right? Is that important, win or lose on Saturday night, that this kid is kind of a new contender in your division, given that the John Jones era presumably is over?
Volkan's very important to the division. He's very important to the future of the division because he's so young. There aren't many young guys that are fighting at the highest level at 205, so I don't even think I called him a kid in that manner. I didn't mean to call him like that.
I don't think you did. I think that
but
was actually a compliment for him.
yeah, he's just a young guy that's made a splash very, very early.
I mean, you feel like this division in particular needs it, especially if we're 15, 16 months away from you maybe not being here anymore?
Yeah, we need young guys. I mean, I'm 38, 39 in March. Glover Teixeira is older. Jimmy Manoa is my age, I think. So we got to get some young guys in this division.
So his time will come, it just won't come on Saturday night.
His time's coming, just not this weekend.
Talk to me a little bit about, I know you've talked about Luke being away and being in Florida. Has it been weird? Have you watched any of the stuff like the embedded and stuff like that to see him working and see Volkan running down the side next to him? Is that weird to see? Because it's weird to us to see as media members or as fans, I think.
I know. Luke's my brother, though, right? I love him. Luke left for a number of reasons. Still trains at AK, but he left because he's having some issues with his... You guys don't know why Luke left, but we do. So there's more to it, right? But I also got a job, many, outside of fighting, and a family. Kane's been hurt, so he lost his two main training partners. Khabib's always in Russia. So he's lost his main guy, so I understand why he made the move. I kind of applaud him for being bold enough to step out of his comfort zone and do something like this. So it doesn't really matter. But I did get a call from Luke the other day because I said that Luke can't beat me. He goes, you had to say that? I was like, come on, man. You knew you weren't going to get out of this thing unscathed. You knew you were not going to get out of here clean. She's like, all right, I got it.
I mean, it did make for some interesting TV to see that episode and see the two of them and knowing your tightness with Luke and knowing the guy you're fighting. But it's just good TV.
I mean, I don't
Nothing more to it.
I don't know what he's supposed to do. They work out in the same room, share like a strength and conditioning coach. Like, what's he going to do? Schedule all of his workouts at different times? It's too difficult. I don't really care, honestly. I don't even care if they spar. But Luke said they don't spar. I don't care if they spar. That's up to them.
Sure. Put on your analyst hat for us for a second. Give us a pick for the main event on Saturday. You're not going to do it? Even though you're not calling the fight?
You're going to pay me?
I don't know. How much do you need? I'm not
Because think about it. Every time I make picks, these guys get mad at me. Everybody gets mad. The only reason I do it is because Fox pays me.
If we pooled our money like from within this group here,
still won't be enough.
$20 a piece.
I gotta go see these guys right now. The shit will be up on the internet, and I'll run into one of them in the hotel.
At least you know it's going to be a good fight.
It's going to be a slobber knocker, like JR would say.
Okay. Thanks, bud. Appreciate it, man.
Welcome back to the West Coast. The MMA Road Show coming at you from all over the country. John Morgan and Cold Coffee can't be together. That doesn't mean we're half-assing it. That doesn't mean we're splitting up. No. That just means you get twice the coverage. How about that? Cold Coffee doing his thing out there in Boston with a with a room full of people, man. Pretty cool. Great to hear all those cats out there having a good time and covering the hell out of this event, man. No question about it, man. I'm bummed to be missing that heavyweight title fight, man. To me, the most exciting heavyweight title fight, the most anticipated heavyweight title fight. The one I've been going back to was thinking Kane and Brock. I remember, the hype around that one. Everybody was just so pumped up for it. Though I think most people that know the sport knew that Kane was going to win the fight. But the anticipation, this one's different because the anticipation, it's 50-50, man. I'm riding with Francis. Francis is a Road Show favorite, man. We've met him very early on in his career. We're very impressed by him, very impressed by his potential and all those wonderful things. I'm going to stick with it. I got to stick with it. That's nothing against Stipe because that's the whole thing. That's what makes this fight so much fun is that, Stipe's on a knockout run too. Everybody's talking about the power of Francis Ngannou, and rightfully so. But take a look at Stipe's record. He's been knocking cats out left and right. So, fun fight, man. I don't see any way that this doesn't deliver. I don't see any way this doesn't end in a knockout, to be honest with you. But I'm rolling with Francis and new. Yeah, hey, should say, by the way, if you like what you're listening, either like what you're listening, if you like what you're hearing, whether it be the stuff in Boston or the stuff in Los Angeles, probably the stuff in Boston, because obviously I can't speak at this point, do us a favor, go to iTunes. Make sure you go in there. Make sure you subscribe, first of all. That helps. Make sure you take a second. Go ahead and rate us real quick if you can. 5 stars, we'd love to have it, but, be fair. Whatever you got. And if you got some feedback, give us some feedback. Love to hear it. Positive, even negative. I'd prefer just positive if you don't mind. That helps us out. Maybe you want to shoot me a private note with some negative feedback. You don't have to give it for the world to see. Be okay with that, man. Just hit me up on Twitter and give me the negative feedback. But for the positive, throw that out there in the public for everybody to see. It helps us out. Helps more people find the MMA Road Show, which we bring to you, of course, every damn week. 147 straight weeks without missing. That's how we do. Daniel Cormier, Volkan Ozdemir. Listen, I went with Daniel Cormier here, too. You have to, right? DC's saying it like, look, there's levels, and I'm on a different level. And he's definitely fought the best of the best, whereas Volkan has had some great performances, but hasn't just continually for years fought the highest level of fighter. But, man, what a great run it would be. Volkan does seem incredibly comfortable, man. Calm, cool, collected. Never seems intimidated by the pressure, by the enormity of the moment, by Cormier himself. Man, just never seems overwhelmed. And what an amazing story that would be. A year ago, I remember interviewing Volkan Ozdemir in a boardroom in Houston. He made his debut on the Super Bowl card. There was no media there just because it was so expensive, obviously, to get a hotel room. I ended up staying in an Airbnb where I was basically staying in like a garden house. I don't know, is that what you call it, a garden house? It was just like a little shed, basically, that this homeowner had turned into a pretty cool little, I guess, a 1-bedroom apartment. A studio apartment thing. It was just like a shed, but anyway, I'm staying in somebody's backyard, basically. But cover that show, and for him a year later to be fighting for the light heavyweight title and it not be unreasonable. There's nobody else out there right now that you'd say, oh man, but this guy got screwed over. Pretty cool. So, certainly, look, if you want to upset DC, you got to have some pop in your hands, right? That's what you think. I don't think many people are going to go wrestle with him toe-to-toe. So you got to have some pop in your hands, and you can't be intimidated. Maybe that's Volkan. Maybe Volkan is, Anthony Johnson with a little different mindset, a little bit more of a killer mindset. Anthony Johnson, one of the most powerful punchers ever, right? But I always hated that he didn't have that edge to him. I get it, and I still have all the respect in the world for Anthony Johnson. He's such a good dude to talk to and everything, and I think he focuses on positivity. But I kind of like my fighters, especially when they're that powerful, to have a little edge to them, a little bit of disregard for their opponent, And he was always, the jokes and the respect, and that's good. That's good. I like it when you kind of got a nasty side there. But anyway, I think Cormier is the right pick, but Volkan Ozdemir is dangerous. He is dangerous. We'll see. Could he shock the world, man? That would be crazy. Listen, the rest of the card, I haven't been there covering anything, so I don't have a ton of stories. I'll definitely be pulling for John Vellante. Love that guy, man. That's one of the nicest dudes you'll ever meet. Always got always good to share a laugh with and to share a frosty beverage with after events, man. He's a good dude, so I'm not gonna lie, I'll be pulling for him, man. I think he's just always fun to talk to. Abdulrazak Al Hassan, still somebody that I'm very impressed with. I like the fact that they're doing a rematch here. I don't hate the decision that was made last time with the Al Hassan fight, the way Hamasi fell when he was knocked down. But I like the fact they're doing it. But I do like Abdulrazak Al Hassan. I think he's got some real potential. And Matt Bessette, I wrote a story about Matt Bessette, who had a pretty interesting ride to get to the UFC. Had basically given up on his dreams. 30 fights into his career, he'd given up on his dreams of being in the UFC. And no sooner than he gave up on his dream than he got a call to be in the UFC. So pretty cool little story if you're looking for some reading to do. The headline there is 18 hours after accepting he'd never be in the UFC, Matt Bessette was in the UFC. So another little piece if you want to read some of my writing. Hey, listen, last thing I want to say, this Conor McGregor situation, which, again, depending on when you listen to the show, might already be all worked out. We know that the fight is on, just like we told you it was going to be last week if you listened. Khabib never going to get out with Tony Ferguson, Brooklyn. Just like we all said it would be. The only remaining question is, will Conor be stripped or not? I kind of want him to be honest with you, just to keep the division moving along. But I will say this, it doesn't matter. We're getting the fights we want to see, and that's what matters. I'm not one of those people. Jesus Christ. I'm not one of those people who thinks that the belt is worth nothing. It is worth something. It's definitely worth something. It means something in the historical context of the sport and the organization, and it also, it also means simple things like being able to renegotiate your contract, and it means money, and it means, that casual observers of the sport will gravitate towards you. Advertisers who don't know much about the sport but want to get involved in MMA, they're gonna jump to the people that have gold belts around their waist. There's no question about it. So it does mean something. But the bottom line is we're getting the fights that we want to get. We're getting the division going back where it needs to be, and it looks like by the end of the year, lightweight will be set up again the right way. It's been such a frustrating stretch, man, between Conor McGregor and George St. Pierre. God bless them both and everything that they've accomplished. But the featherweight division, the lightweight division, the welterweight division, the middleweight division, it's all a damn mess right now, man. And I'm anxious to get things going back in the right direction. And I think this is the right fight to start with. And, of course, the winner going to face Conor McGregor. Sounds like in September. Again, which is pretty exciting considering that the UFC does have a Russia date on hold. Should Khabib Nurmagomedov prove victorious. Although I don't know that would possibly be a pay-per-view. I think that's supposed to be a fight night. So I don't know that Khabib versus Conor could actually take place in Russia. I think they want to have an event in Russia at local time so that fans in the market can go at a normal time. But that means a bad time for the U.S. If you wanted to do it a pay-per-view, it'd be a very, very early morning start, and I don't know that that's what they want to do. But anyway, it's still interesting nonetheless. But, listen, man, if Conor McGregor is stripped, you know what he's going to do. He's still just going to walk around and say, I'm still the champ. I never lost. Your belt means nothing, blah, 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 blah. So, honestly, I don't care if they strip him or not. If they want to leave him, have the belt, and they just fight for the interim title, I'm okay with that. It's just as long as we get this fight happening, please. MMA gods, please. Don't take this from us. Do not take this from us. You've taken it from us too many times. This is the fight we want to see, and then we want to see the winner face Conor McGregor. And hopefully, fingers crossed, those two fights happen this year. And if so, then I don't care if Conor gets stripped. Whatever happens at the end of those fights, that's who the champion is. And damn it, we'll be back to normal at lightweight. All right, listen. Don't know what we're going to do for and a half. But we'll figure out something. Hopefully, I can get Cold Coffee to shoot us something from Boston. If not, maybe we'll just wrap up everything from L.A. Maybe I'll grab Mr. Gareth A. Davies, who's here as well. I don't know. We'll figure out something. In the meantime, thanks for listening.